Hi there, this is Matt Luscombe from System Risk Services, and today I'm going to talk about the loophole that allows HCM Data Loader users to assign not just HR privileges, but any privilege from finance or IT security as well. So before I show you how HCM integration specialists can use HCM Data Loader to assign themselves privileges, first of all, I'm just signed in as a systems administrator. So this one is systems risk, and I'm going to show you the privileges of the other user account that I'm going to use today. So there is just to make it quite obvious as to what it is. So there's a systems risk rogue HR data loader user. If I just search for the user account, you'll see that they've come up, and in terms of the privileges they've got, this is on an Oracle demo environment. They have been assigned the out-the-box employee role, and they have been assigned the human capital management integration specialist. So they're set up as an employee, and that is auto-provisioned in the top role, and then they've been manually assigned this second role. And the second role allows them is the default role that allows access to full version of HCM Data Loader out of the box. So all I'm going to do then is log on as this rogue user. So sign out of the system administrator user that I use, and then sign in with the next one. So we're now logged in as the rogue HR Data Loader user, and all I'm going to do is go to my client groups, go to Data Exchange, and then I am going to go to Import and Load Data. So this is the main area where we load data, and then I'm going to click on Import. And I have pre-prepared a file, so I'm going to select a local file, and I'm going to pick my HCM Data Loader demo. And so there are two files here. One is the DAT file, and I'll show you on screen what privileges, what I'm actually requesting. Data Loader uses zip file. You upload the zip file of any DAT file. So I'm going to select that one, and you can see it's now said user.zip, and I'm just going to click submit now. So it now shows me that it's been submitted, and this will take a few minutes to load, quite probably. So I can see that this is one I loaded up last night, but if I click refresh, you'll see that I've now got this top one. And if I want to, I can click review progress. And there's two steps to it. One is around importing, and one is around loading. So first of all, it will attempt to load the couple of lines that I've shown you up, and then the second bit will be to actually, it'll import it into a interface table, and then it'll then attempt to load them. And you can see down here, this is the detail of that data set. So if I refresh that, we can see that it has now loaded the two lines. They've been imported and they've been successfully loaded. And if I can click on there, and it will show me these, and it will show me that it has assigned the two roles that I asked it to. It says it's done it successfully. So I'm now done. In practice, to actually assign these roles fully, there is a scheduled process that runs in the background called send pending LDAP requests. That is scheduled for all organizations on a periodic basis. Most of the clients that we work with have it scheduled very commonly and very frequently. In practice, this being an Oracle demo environment, it's not scheduled anywhere near as frequently. So I'm going to log back in as my systems administrator user and then manually start that job. As I say, in practice, this is not needed. In real life, these users, these privileges will get assigned to that user without having to worry about it in the slightest. So as back as my scheduled, as my system administrator user, I'm just going to go to schedule processes and start the LDAP job. So that's now submitted that scheduled process. Typically, it kicks off a whole heap of child processes. It depends on how frequently it's run and how many changes need to go through. So you can see that it's now running over here, and there's all the children. And they will shuffle up and each mark themselves as succeeded, hopefully. So there's the last of the children that's now succeeded. And there's the parent down there. And you can see that's now succeeded. Giving it a couple of minutes for the scheduled process to load through, then I'm going to log back on as the rogue HR Data Loader user again. And now you can see that the set of activities has grown massively, and that's a combination of the IT security manager role and the application implementation consultant role, which between them basically give you the keys to the kingdom. So if I first of all go to tools and then go to security console, so I am now in a position where I can create new roles, I can amend existing users. If I wanted to, I could start taking over other user accounts. So I could reset the passwords for any particular user if I wish. So for example, John Dunbar is the out-the-box demo user account. If I wanted to, I could reset his password and then log in as him and start making changes, and it would make it look like he has performed any creation of new users or assignment of roles to users if I wanted to. Particularly risky if there are things like single sign-on is in use, where people won't know that people have reset the password, that someone's reset their password, because they'll just be logging on directly by clicking the use single sign-on button. And there's no report that shows me when I last logged in or last changed my password, etc. So unless you've got a custom-built report, then you're not going to notice that. So one thing I will also show you is that one of the activities that I find quite interesting is that when I go to audit reports, so I get this because it's part of the application implementation consultant role, but I mean there are other roles that have it by default. We absolutely recommend restricting both the ability to maintain audit reports and view audit reports, given the confidentiality of the information. So if I look for changes that have been performed today, and I'm going to look for Oracle Platform Security Services. and click search, you will see that whilst it records that roles have been added around IT security manager and around the application implementation consultant, you'll see under this user, this is showing that it was being performed by a generic user account. So this enterprise scheduler job application identity for HCM, these are all changes that have been performed by the internal system, including by HCM Data Loader. So you cannot look at the audit logs and see that a particular user has performed this change, whereas, for example, this one here shows you that a specific user in this demo environment called prc20.student has added roles to another user. So that is a vulnerability, a difficulty with HCM Data Loader, and it's yet another reason why you would absolutely want to restrict who can do this, who can access it in the first place, and then you need different monitoring controls that are not the standard ones provided by Oracle to monitor who has used this to perform changes. So that's the end of the demo. You can see that I am logged in as the rogue HR Data Loader user here. So I am using my privileges already. And if I want to go change configuration settings, then I can if I wish to. There's nothing stopping me anymore. In terms of what you could do to help mitigate these challenges around HCM Data Loader and the fact that it can load roles, really we've split these into two different areas around preventative controls. So how do we stop it from happening in the first place? And detective controls. So how do we then monitor it if it has happened? So around preventative controls first. First of all, really the key controls are around restricting access. So we need to restrict access to who has access to the actual out-the-box job roles. Really, we shouldn't be using those at all. We should take a copy of those and then revoke the specific privileges that relate to HCM Data Loader, and then create job roles and then data roles based on those, HCM data roles based on those. We should then really kind of split those into a number of different areas for the remaining activities. First of all, we should have an HCM Data Loader only role. So this allows me to do uploads, and this really should be absolutely restricted in a BAU environment, and it should really be there based on change control only. Secondly, we've got HCM Data Loader configuration only. So this is splitting out a specific individual privilege that should not be assigned to those people that have access to the Data Loader only role. And the reason for that is the configuration activity for HCM Data Loader has its own special page that allows me to set configuration options. And that's great for things like the number of fault tolerances, etc. But the key bit there is it allows me to turn auditing on and off, which I wouldn't want any PD that has access to HCM Data Loader to be able to do, because otherwise there's a risk that they turn off the auditing and then perform the changes via HCM Data Loader. The third one is that we would recommend using HCM Spreadsheet Data Loader instead. Now, I know it sounds very similar, but it's actually a completely different tool, and it's a lot more controllable. So the nature of HCM Data Loader is I will have access to every single one of the 80 or so business objects, be it user, which is what we've demonstrated today, but it also could be around people, employees, jobs, etc. If I'm using HCM Spreadsheet Data Loader, I can be very explicit around which particular HCM business objects I have access to. And if I don't want people to be able to use the user one, then I can prevent that. Equally, if I want people to be able to say, for example, assign roles to existing users, as we have in this particular example, but not to be able to issue password reset requests, then I can be explicit around the template that I'm going to give those users. We've then got a separate one around HCM Spreadsheet Data Loader configuration only. So really,
the users that are performing the upload shouldn't really be the ones that are creating the templates and assigning privileges to those templates and assigning them to roles. So that's on the preventative control side. We then separately have detective controls. Now, HCM Data Loader is a bit of a challenge because, as we've seen on the previous a couple of minutes ago, then really the challenge there is the fact that when I perform a change via HCM Data Loader, it doesn't actually record on the audit logs who is performing it. So first of all, we do need to enable auditing on the HCM Data Loader changes. Secondly, we need to enable logging on Oracle Platform Security Services in this particular case, but also on other key high-risk HR or finance areas. And then thirdly, around this particular risk around role assignments, we need to be reviewing all role assignments performed by the generic user that we showed previously, Enterprise Scheduler Job Application Identity for HCM, which is a really catchy name, thank you Oracle, in the audit logs. Now, if we do find items that have been assigned by that user, I mean that could be completely normal and completely legitimate. So as part of bulk uploads, as part of go live, that might be the way that organizations are planning to do it. But if you're not fine, if you are already live, really you need to think about, is it high risk? So if somebody is being assigned the employee role, or your version, the version thereof within your organization, or contingent worker, or line manager, those are relatively low risk roles. However, if somebody is being assigned IT security manager or application implementation consultant, I mean, those are both very well known out the box roles, and really genuinely, I would seriously question why they would need to go through HCM Data Loader for such a high risk role. If they are required, I'd expect them to be going through a formal change control and going through a documented process and manually assigned by an IT security manager. So I've been Matt Luscombe from System Risk Services. If you have any further questions, please do feel free to ask. My contact details are on the next slide.